Ladies and gentlemen, this is the complete beginner guide to Kunimitsu. No matter what level of player you are, whether you're a high level or a new player to the game, no matter how much previous experience you have with Kunimitsu, this video aims to help all players who are starting out with Kunimitsu try to get a better understanding of the character and give you a better foundation on how to start playing Kunimitsu in Tekken 8. I've been playing Kunimitsu since Tekken 7. I have spent as much time as I possibly can playing her since her release in Tekken 8 in order to be able to bring out this video and to try teaching you in as good of a way as I can how to play this character. This is still the first week that she's been out, so we obviously don't know everything about the character right now. So if you're watching this far into a future, like say it's season 4 or something, and you're starting out and trying to learn Kunimitsu and you're watching this video, there is going to be some information that I'm sure is going to come out after this video is made, but I'm trying to make this video in a way that no matter where you're watching it into the future, you are still going to be able to get information from this video, and basically this video is going to remain relevant into the future. As you can tell, this is obviously a very long video. I also have timestamps down below, so if you want to skip around anywhere in the video to try to get to the information that you feel like you need, please feel free to do so. All of the sections in this video are all self-contained, so whatever information that you're looking for, if you go to that timestamp, you don't need information talked about previously in the video in order to get what you're looking for. The first thing I want to talk about with Kunimitsu, though, isn't necessarily going to be about any of her moves or anything. What I want to start out by talking about is the general game plan and premise around Kunimitsu. And the reason why I want to talk about this at first is because Kunimitsu has been a very polarizing character for a lot of people, and I think that going into playing Kunimitsu with these expectations in mind, knowing what you might struggle with, knowing what questions you might have to ask and what you have to think about, is going to be really important, not only for your journey with the character, but also to help prevent some of the frustration. I've been very frustrated with Kunimitsu in Tekken 8, to be honest with you, and one of the reasons for that is because a lot of what you're going to be doing with Kunimitsu at a lot of level of plays is going to be very basic. The reason for this is similar to how Kunimitsu kind of relates to Yoshimitsu in this way. Yoshimitsu as well, for a lot of old Yoshimitsu players, is very frustrating because the way that Tekken 8 works sort of goes up against the creative aspects of the character, and the same is true for Kunimitsu. A lot of the moves that you might be trying to use with Kunimitsu that might lead to creative or interesting situations, like up forward 3 for example, or maybe sidestep 2 or some other moves like this, can really be beaten out really hard by opponents that are just hitting buttons. And if the opponent is just hitting a lot of buttons and not allowing you to be able to do more of these creative and interesting things with the character, then you might feel a little bit stuck. A lot of what Kunimitsu has to do to play around opponents like this is do 1-1, 2-2, 4-2, forward 4, down 1, from crouch mix, and this can get very repetitive and boring. And I've brought this up in recent time to other people that are trying out the character, and a lot of people feel the same way. And as I've been playing Kunimitsu, the more experience I get with her, the less I feel stuck in this way of playing. Against a lot of people below GOD 3, the most effective strategy, especially when you're starting out, is going to be a very basic, fast, small Tekken sort of strategy. Again, 1-1, 1-1-2, counter hit with the 2, and when this last hit counter hits, you do 1-1-2, you get this guaranteed follow-up for an extra 19 damage. Of course, this whole thing isn't natural on counter hit, but I'm just trying to demonstrate that this is going to be a very prominent strategy that you're going to be using to beat up a lot of opponents who are even up to the higher levels, because at least as it is right now, a lot of people want to just attack into these strings, attack into Kunimitsu, and if you're trying to do a lot of other things that are slower, like say, down forward 3+4, for instance, and you're trying trying to do something creative and interesting, you might get stuffed out of it and it might feel really frustrating. But I think what's important to remember about Kunimitsu is two things. One, this character is really complicated. A lot of people are saying that Kunimitsu is easy to play right now, and it depends on what your definition of easy is. Yeah, Kunimitsu has a lot of very easy, straightforward buttons and setups that she can use, from crouch 1+2 is of course a war crime, down 1 being counter hit heat engage, that's also plus on block, the 1-1 string, the 2-2 string. Yes, she has some things that are very simple, straightforward, and easy to be able to utilize. However, Kunimitsu has a lot that's going on for her. She has a lot of different moves and a lot of different reasons why you would use those moves, which takes time to be able to get accustomed to and recognize what moves you want to use in what situation. So you might feel a little bit stuck starting to play Kunimitsu and feel like every time you try to be creative, you get slapped on the wrist or you get punished for it. But it's something that you have to learn over time and learn with experience. Kunimitsu, a lot like Yoshimitsu, is a character where a lot of her moves are designed for one specific purpose. For example, her up back 2, this unblockable, has about no range on it. It is a move that is designed for a very specific purpose. Even if I'm out here, this is just going to whiff and I'm going to get launched. It's slow, it's linear, and it feels like it doesn't have a lot of use cases. However, it does have a use case. And the use case that I found where this works best specifically is if the opponent is in the corner. Because not only can they not backdash out of it, they also can't sidestep. So if you have an opponent that, one, you have made scared of your offense, so they're not pressing, 2, they're in the corner, and 3, because they're in the corner, they can't backdash or sidestep. If you start something like, for example, if you do a down 1 while rising 2 to try keeping them from pressing any buttons, and now they start getting patient because of this, that's when you can use up 4-2, then you get a guaranteed follow-up. Kunimitsu is full of tools like this, and this decision making and understanding when to place these moves, where to place these moves, when moves may or may not be effective, is paramount to being able to understand the entirety of Kunimitsu's move list and how she functions. So again, while it may be frustrating at first playing Kunimitsu, maybe not, some people I've talked to have felt that this way, some people haven't. But if you are someone that feels this way, it's just going to be something that comes over time and as you get comfortable with the character. And one of Kunimitsu's biggest strengths because of this is her versatility in how you can play her. Because Kunimitsu has all of these moves and this ability, this innate ability to be able to do all of these, I don't want to say the word things because it doesn't sound very descriptive, but I'm just going to say all of these things that she can do, it means that it attributes to a variety of different playstyles. If you want to be a combo monster with Kunimitsu, you can be a combo monster. She has the tools to be able to facilitate really intricate and interesting combos. Her movement and her poking also allow her to be a character if you want to just play neutral and you want to play spacing and you want to play a lot of small Tekken stuff, then you can do that as well. If you want to play rush down stance, mix stance, guess 50-50, that's something that you can do as well. You can go stance, plus on block, frame trap. Kunimitsu has the tools and the ability to be able to play in a large variety of different playstyles, which is another thing that makes her complex. But for most people, depending on what you like playing, you are probably going to find something that you like about Kunimitsu. Doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to love the character overall, but there is something there to find. Just finding the right tools to be able to make that work is where part of the difficulty and the complexity comes in. So now let's talk about Kunimitsu's strengths and weaknesses when you're starting out. Her strengths come from her versatility. Her having such a large, diverse array of moves means that Kunimitsu is going to have a tool fit for every situation. If you have an opponent that's being very aggressive, you have counter hit tools like down 1 or down 4, or not down forward, forward 4, or even your jab string, your 2-2, your 4-2, down forward 4 as a 12 frame mid. You have a ton of options to be able to beat our opponents like that. If you have an opponent that's turtling a lot and is stand blocking a lot, you have great tools for that as well. Down from crouch 1+2 does not even need to be mentioned, but other lows like down 1+2 are really good for setting up your from crouch game. You have your back turn down 2 and you have your back turn down 4, which at +5 allows you to be able to loop into this again. And you have an onslaught of lows that you have available at your disposal to try opening up a turtling opponent that you can then start hitting with some of your mids as well. Where Kunimitsu kind of struggles started out as being her linearity. And there are a couple of merits to this claim. For example, if you're playing against a really strong defensive player, if Kunimitsu does forward 4 into a mix-up situation, this is +3 on block. So Kunimitsu could do the 1 here to try counter hitting you, she could do the 2 to try counter hitting you, or she could try doing the 1+2 to try catching your sidestep. But if your opponent is skilled, a well-timed step guard is going to be able to counteract all of these options, sorry I did it a little bit wrong there, that Kunimitsu can do out of this situation in set stance. And so what that means is that a mindful opponent is going to be able to take advantage of a Kunimitsu player just throwing out a lot of attacks. And it's the same when we look at, say, you know, the 1-1 string, for example. If Kunimitsu does 1-1-2, or if a Kunimitsu player does 1-1 and then cat 2, if I, as the opponent, just sidewalk here, then I can avoid all of these options and then launch the opponent, right? And there's not a whole lot, sorry, I'm timing was wrong on that, but there's not a whole lot that the opponent can really do to be able to avoid this. And so as the Kunimitsu player, there is a bit of a disadvantage in the linearity of her moves, but this isn't necessarily a disadvantage of Kunimitsu. For example, because the 1-1 string here is -5 on block, what I could do if I wanted to and I had a read is if my opponent started sidestepping to the right, I could just do 1-1 by itself and then hit them trying the sidestep with 4-2. This is one of many strategies that's really important to think about and to discover on your own. There are way too many situations like this for me to be able to cover them all in this video, but these kind of situations are really important for you to learn as Kunimitsu to be able to mitigate this disadvantage that she has. It's not necessarily a weakness of hers, but it is something you have to figure out and you have to play around, and it's a very important thing to be cognizant of. The main weakness that I believe Kunimitsu has is twofold. One of them is her range. One of the problems with Kunimitsu is that a lot of her key tools, like forward 4 and down 1, do not have a lot of range and are very steppable. And this means that Kunimitsu really wants to play right in your face. Of course, at this range, she still has tools to be able to hit you with, to be able to engage with you, but more of her key tools that she wants to be using, like 2-2 for example, or 1-1, or again down 1, or forward 4, or all of these moves need to be a little bit closer, even down back 4. And because of that, an opponent who's backdashing and sidestepping, and depending on the matchup, like if you're playing against Realm or something, it can be a little tricky for Kunimitsu to get in at that range where she can start doing stuff that is threatening to the opponent. The other thing with Kunimitsu as well is that when Kunimitsu is out at, say, this range, the only thing that she really has the ability to be able to engage with you with is set stance. But the problem is with set stance that not only is it really easy for the opponent to use keep out to get you out of it, you're limited in the options that you have out of set stance. For example, if I do set 1 here, I am way out of range for this hitting. So even if I am out here, and again, I'm playing against a character that has a little bit longer range, or I'm thinking of like maybe I'm playing against Dragunov and he might do running 2. Not only if I throw this out am I going to get hit really hard if they do running 2, but if they block it, I'm not really doing anything with it. And even if it hits or counter hits, that's also not really doing too much. It's the same with set 2 as well. Set 2's range is also not the best I've ever seen. And if these moves get blocked, then I'm -9. So I've gotten in from long range, but I spent that range, I spent that time and that risk to end up losing my turn. So really the only thing that Kunimitsu has to be able to threaten from this range is set 1+2, because set 1+2 has far more range and is -5, meaning that you have access to your parry and you have the ability to be able to sidestep the opponent if they're trying to jab check you or down forward 1 or something like that. But again, if you spend that time using set 1+2 and you're -5, that means it's the opponent's turn. They kind of get to do whatever they want to do to you when you're at close range. You also have the option of being able to do set 3, which of course you can do, but is much riskier because with the set stance, it is a lot more reactable. And the important thing when talking about the range is similar to the linearity problem. There are ways for Kunimitsu to be able to play around this. Again, we have set stance, and if you have an opponent that is respecting set stance and just trying to block, then what you can do is you can use set into from crouch and then force a from crouch mix that way. Much safer at -12, allows you to be able to get in, starts your offensive pressure. But this is one of those things where, again, this is something that you're going to have to learn to get comfortable with over time with Kunimitsu. It's not going to come immediately and it's not going to be straightforward, but the main point is that Kunimitsu does have weaknesses, but these are more so things that you have to learn how to play around and figure out what the right answer is given a situation that you're presented with when playing Kunimitsu. And if I was to give one bit of advice when playing Kunimitsu, when starting out Kunimitsu and trying to learn Kunimitsu, that would be my main bit of advice. If you feel like you're struggling in a particular situation, if you feel like there's something that's hard to deal with, if you just don't know what to do, go in, look at your moves, try that, think a little bit more abstractly about the situation and find an answer to it, because Kunimitsu is always going to have an answer to a problem that is given to you. It just might take some time and some thinking to be able to come to the conclusion that you need to get to be able to solve that problem. All right, and now that that's out of the way, let's talk about punishment. And we're going to start out with one of Kunimitsu's key defining moves, forward, 4-2. This is a 9-frame, 34 damage while spotting punish, which sounds ridiculous when you look at it at first. And it still is ridiculous. But the key to understand about forward, 4-2 is that it's on a forward input. It's very important to understand that forward inputs cannot be input buffered in Tekken. What I mean by that is if my opponent does a move that is -10 and I immediately try doing forward 2 like I would do 1-2 with the input buffer, then what I'm going to get is that. You see, I did the forward 4 input and I got forward 4. The reason why is because when you do forward in many ways is like a stance in this game, in the same way that crouch dash is. You have to do press the 4 button out of the forward dash stance. That's how moves like forward 4 work, forward 2 work. And because of that, you cannot input buffer this punish, which means it can never come out actually on frame 9. The fastest that this can come out on is frame 10. And the way that you do this on frame 10 is that you can input buffer the forward input, but on the first frame that you recover from your block stun, you have to press forward and 4. It's more so you have to be holding forward and press 4. So because of that, again, just to make it as easy to understand as possible, I'm going to reiterate. during the input buffer window, after you block a move, you press forward 4 during that input buffer window, and then when you actually recover, so you see when I jump, I've recovered from the block stun, that's when you press 4. And in order to do this as a 10-frame punish, you have to do it on the first frame. Like that. Took me a couple of tries. There we go. I don't know the timing for this. This is the first time I've done it. Probably should have done something I've actually practiced with. But you get the idea. This becomes one of Kunimitsu's more defining features that she has, because it's very execution heavy, it's very execution intensive. But if you are able to do this, you can get a lot of reward out of it. It's especially true at the wall, because if I'm at the wall and I'm able to hit this punish when my opponent does something that's -10, you can see just how much reward that you can get out of that. It's also true with lows as well. Because this is on a forward input, you can also do this to punish lows. So if I have Kunimitsu set up to do down back 4, which is a low that's -12 on block, and I have the ability to be able to do this here, which clearly I don't, then I get a lot of reward out of my block punishment, whereas normally I would only get 26 damage in this situation. But because of the damage as well, even in neutral, which I seem to have messed up there, didn't punish, there we go, I'm still getting more damage out of this than if I just do while rising 1-1. But there are some other advantages that you can use to this as well besides just combos. For example, Kunimitsu's back 1 on counter hit, just like Yoshimitsu's back 1, is +12 on counter hit. And so if you have the execution for it at the wall, oh no, the combo dropped. Damn it. Well, you get the point. Oh, no, I can't do it again. Oh, what a sad day. There we go. 81 damage off of that. And learning this is not going to be paramount to your ability to be able to play Kunimitsu. However, if you can learn to do this, then it is going to give you a lot of reward. There is a big risk to this though, and that is if you mess it up, it is launch punishable on block. So that means 2 things. 1, you can't just throw it out willy-nilly. You need to do it as a block punish. You cannot just throw this move out in neutral. You can't just try to use it to get a free wall splat. It does not work that way. The other thing as well is that you have to be confident in your ability to be able to punish with it. If you mess it up, you just die. That's it. So it's a really important thing to practice, but if you practice it, you're going to get a lot of reward out of it. All right, from that, let's move on to not the 3-button, 1-2-2. 1-2-2 is Kunimitsu's 10-frame punish, leaves you +5 in front turn, or you can choose to go +5 into back turn. Now, what option you're going to want to choose is going to depend on the situation. The main thing with 1-2-2 into front turn is that it frame traps into forward 4. If the opponent jabs into this, then you can see how your 10-frame will actually whiff, but as we talked about before, forward 4-3, there we go. Oh, I took 2 tries. We get that as a guaranteed follow-up. Now, if the opponent tries the down jab, however, and it trades, then you're not getting anything out of it. You're left +5. You're reset to neutral with frame advantage. But that also means that if you do this, you're still at the same frames, so forward 4 can frame trap into itself once again if you want it to. But besides the trade situation on forward 4, you also have down forward 1-2 here, which is fully natural on counter hit, 44 damage, but you have to be careful throwing out the entire thing because the last hit's -14 on block, forces crouch, so some characters like Raven and Jin, for example, can launch you if you just throw this out, so you have to be really careful and mindful of the counter hit confirm. If you just do down forward 1-2, this is not natural on normal hit, only on counter hit, and it's -10 on block. Those are a couple of frame traps you have access to though, but the other option that you have, if I turn them off of punishment, is going into back turn at +5. We'll be talking about back turn in depth later on in the video, but your 1-2-2 in the back turn frame traps perfectly in the back turn 1+2 because back turn 1+2 is 14 frames. And you might be asking, well, what if the opponent tries to power crush you through here? Because yes, power crush will work, but you can actually block the power crush afterwards. And I've tested this on multiple characters, and this is consistent with pretty much any power crush. So yeah, it doesn't really have any weaknesses or drawbacks to it whatsoever. It's a weapon, of course, too, so it can't be parried. And even if the opponent tries sidestepping here to try avoiding it at +5, it still catches sidestep. So there's not really a lot that the opponent can actually do to be able to avoid this mid. On top of that, and again, we'll talk about this later in the video, it's only -2 on block. So if you do your 1+2 into 1-1, if you're playing against an opponent and they try to, say, down forward one check you, or like say you're playing against Steve and he tries to back 1 you, 1-1 will actually beat that because you're only -2. So if you don't quite know what to do after your 1-2-2, back turn 1+2 is always the go-to option, on top of being able to also do 1-2-2 into your other various lows as well to be able to keep up the offensive pressure. Basically, when you do 1-2-2, you almost always want to go into back turn because the options from there are very powerful and borderline impossible to be able to counter. You're just getting a true mix-up from this position, and the opponent doesn't really have a way to be able to avoid the 1+2, while the 1+2 being -2 on block means that you're able to keep going even if they end up blocking it. You don't have that kind of thing that you can really do out of front turn because the opponent has the option to be able to jab you out of it or power crush you through it. Moving on, Kunimitsu does not have an 11 frame punish besides forward, forward, forward 2, so you're either going to want to use 1-2-2 for that or forward, forward, forward 2. With 12 frame, she has two options for 12 frame. She has either 2-2 or she has 4-2. 4-2 works pretty much the same as 1-2-2, except it's +6 instead of +5. Not really going to make that much of a difference in the grand scheme of things. You're still going to lose to a down jab if you try doing down 2 because it's 17 frames instead of 16 frames. Down 4 being 20 frames means that not really much changes between 1-2-2 and 4-2 in terms of the on-hit situation. So there's not really much to cover there. If you need to know about how 4-2 works, again, refer back to the 1-2-2 section because it's pretty much exactly the same. When it comes to 2-2 as well, it's 26 damage versus 28, so it gives you 2 less damage, leaves you +5 in front turn, which again, similar situation to 1-2-2 in front turn. It's just kind of worse than back turn, and most Kunimitsu players I see when they punish something that's -12 opt to do the 4-2 instead. 2-2 kind of works more as a poke than a punish, but the one advantage you have out of doing 2-2 is that you can go into Katan stance. Now, out of Katan stance, you don't really have a lot of options for mixing the opponent, and a lot of the time what you're going to end up doing if you want to mix the opponent is just manually going into back turn, so why not get the 2 extra damage and do 4-2 instead? There are going to be some niche reasons why you would want to use 2-2 over 4-2, but for the most part, just to keep it simple, keep your 12 frame punish to 4-2. Moving on to 13. Her 13 frame punish is 4-2-3. This move not only is a 13 frame punish, but is also confirmable, and that means at the wall, you can throw this move out and try to confirm it into the second hit to give you wall splat and full combo. It can be very good for this kind of situation. But at 13 frames, this knocks down, puts the opponent a little bit far away, but not far away enough that you cannot start a mix-up situation. You can choose to go set stance to close the distance and do a from crouch mix if you wish, or what you could do instead is you could run up on them and try to down 1 for +3 and force a from crouch mix from there. There's also been some tech found that if the opponent chooses to tech roll, if you do forward and then set stance here, then you go into back turn, and then you can do a back turn mix from there. You have to do a deep dash forward in order to get into this position, but that is another option you have at your disposal. You have quite a few options from here, but the main thing to remember is that after this hits, you get an Ogi situation, so make sure that you're utilizing that. At 14 frames, Kunimitsu has a 14-frame launch punish. It is forward, down, forward, 2. There's been some speculation that you can do it just as forward and down, forward, 2. You cannot. I'm trying to do this as best I can to demonstrate this, including on the just frame here. That was with a down input. You cannot do this as just forward, down, forward, 2. Unfortunately, I'm not getting it perfectly on the frame. There we go. You will just get down, forward, 2. You have to do the full input. Now, with this is not a crouch dash. Kunimitsu does not have a crouch dash. So this is not the same as electric. You can buffer this. So if I have the opponent do, say, down forward 1, 2, 2, because down forward 1, 2, 2 is minus 14 on block, then you can punish this with forward, down, forward 2, and you can input buffer, as I'm going to demonstrate now. Let me go here. As you can see, this is not the same as forward, 3. I could input buffer that just fine and hit the 2 button. Now, the important thing to keep in mind here, though, is that this still requires you to press 3 inputs in order to be able to do 4 if you count neutral. Now, you don't have to input neutral to be able to do this. And in fact, this might be easier on keyboard. As you can see, you do not need a neutral input. So if you are using a leverless, this is going to be a lot easier to be able to do than if you are on pad or you are on stick like I am. But either way, you have to remember that there are more frames that you have to do to be able to do this full input. So you have to be really sharp on your punishment. And if you mess it up, this is also launch punishable on block, so you will die. So you have to be really mindful of that, and you have to be quick on your ability to execute this punish. If you're not, then you'll die for it, and that's something you gotta be really mindful of. Another thing that you might have noticed, though, if you were paying attention, is that this move that I punished with DP, crouch dash, whatever, 2, forward, down, forward, 2, leaves me in crouch. And this is because this punish you can actually do on lows as well. In Tekken 8, you can do motion inputs from crouch. This includes DP inputs, Dragon Punch inputs. So you can see, I was a little bit late on that one, even though I knew it was coming. Do it one more time. There we go. If I block a low that's minus 14, I can punish with this, but again, it's a tricky input to be able to do, so you have to be really mindful of it and practice it a lot in order to be able to make it consistent. Finally, at 15, you have 2 options. You have either down forward 2 or you have hopkick. I personally just go for down forward 2 because it feels a lot more reliable to be able to do, and it's a lot easier with your combos as well because of the universal combo routes involving using up forward 3 afterwards that we're going to talk about later. With up forward 3, you can't go into another up forward 3, so it might be a little bit confusing when it comes to how the generic combos work, and you can use either one. I personally just go for down forward 2, and the damage is pretty much the same between both of them. Now, for While Rising punishment, again, like we talked about at the beginning, forward 2 can be used on lows that you block crouching. So if I block this, for example, forward 2, I can use as a punish at minus 10. All right, I got the old man out here just to demonstrate. I have him set up to do the second hit of his house sweep, which of course is minus 10 on block. And you can see I can punish it with forward 3. Again, requires practice, requires execution to be able to do, but even at minus 10, Kunimitsu has a punish for these lows. And this is going to be the optimal way to punish most things up until minus 13. Simply because it does more damage. Now, as for minus 11 punish, you have While Rising 4. Let me turn this off so it doesn't annoy me with a pop-up. You have While Rising 4. If you don't do forward 2, leaves you plus 5, a common situation for Kunimitsu, and does 15 damage. At plus 5, you can frame trap into her forward 4, or you could try counter hitting with down forward 1, or you could just try using her 1, 2, and forward 2 strings to try to get something going. At minus 12, you have while rising 1-1, which is going to leave you a lot more plus at plus 8. This allows for a lot more options for you to be able to utilize. For example, forward 4 now will no longer trade with an opponent's jab. You can use down 1, and this will only lose 2 jab interrupts. Otherwise, it will be counter hit. And at plus 8 as well, a lot more of your options are going to be Power Crush. Power Crush activates on frame 7, which means that it is going to lose to any move that is 14 frames or faster. That namely means, again, moves like 1-1, 2-2, 4-2, even something like down forward 4. Not that I necessarily recommend that, but moves like that are going to be out Power Crush. Power Crush is only going to work at 15 frames, so with something like down forward 4, for example. And you also have access to your lows as well. So if you do while rising 1-1, your down back 4 is 17 frames, which means there's nothing that the opponent can do to actually be able to interrupt this situation. You could also try to do your down 1 plus 2. Now, because this forces the opponent into crouch instead of keeping them standing, the opponent can do while rising 4 to interrupt this, but you're not putting yourself at much risk doing this, and if it hits, it really gets your offense going. At 13 frames, you have while rising 2-1, a move that we're going to talk more about later for different reasons, mainly its ability to be able to be hit confirmed, but this is your 13 frame while rising heat engager. For 14 frames, we talked about this earlier on the standing punishment, but you have 4 down, down, forward 2 at minus 14. This is a full launcher from crouch, and because it's on a motion input, you can do this as a punish from crouch in Tekken 8. And then finally, at 15, you have either while rising 3, or you can do hopkick. Either or, I recommend going for up forward 3 because it just makes the combo a lot easier to be able to execute. We'll be showing combos more in the combo section later on in the video, but that's going to be everything for Kunimitsu's punishment. And so now that we've finished talking about punishment, let's talk about combos. So let's start with the combo structure of Kunimitsu. Kunimitsu's main combo structure, her main way to be able to achieve tailspin in a combo is set 1-2-1. Now, the way that you get to being able to use set 1-2-1 is off of the moves that transition into set. Those two moves being forward 4 into 1-2-1 or back turn 4 into 1-2-1. Both of these moves are going to be used at different times in the combo, but the main thing that you need to remember is that to be able to do the screw, most of the time you're doing something like forward 4 or back turn 4 into 1-2-1. And so if you want a really basic combo with this concept, just down forward 2, forward 4, 1-2-1. If you're ever panicking and wondering what to do, that should work most of the time. And the reason why is because when you're using set stance, you're dashing in on the opponent. So if you can find an opportunity to be able to use forward 4, you should be able to find the 1-2-1 as well. Unless you're doing a really long combo and you break the floor or the balcony or something, but by that point, your screw probably should have already been used. Now, as for combo filler, there are two main things that you can use to be able to fill a combo and are going to be used in most combos, and that is up forward 3 and forward 3 plus 4. Now, the interesting thing about forward 3 plus 4 is that because it puts you in back turn, you are forced to do back turn 4 in order to be able to continue the combo. There's really no other choices that you have besides immediately screwing with back turn forward 1 plus 2, which you should really only use if you've used forward 3 plus 4 and you realize, wait a second, my combo isn't going to work, or you're panicking a little bit. But generally speaking, after you do forward 3 plus 4, it's always 4 into set 1-2-1, just to keep it super simple. And to give a little bit of combo fill before you do that, you do hopkick here. Generally speaking, after most combo stars here, if you just do hopkick, it's going to work and be able to give you a combo. So even if I do something like forward 1 plus 2, which crumples, down forward 2, hopkick forward 3 plus 4, that dropped there because I was a little bit late, that's just me being silly, or while rising 3, most combo stars are going to be the same thing. The only real exception to this is going to be hopkick. Hopkick cannot go back into hopkick, so at that point, just keep it simple, do the same combo that you normally would. Now, when you get to the ender here, what is going to be your ender? So you have a couple of options at your disposal. The main one that a lot of people use is going to be dash up into 3+4 because this tail spins, and then forward 2 into either set 3+4 or up forward 4 if you want to break the floor. And so a full combo with all of those things in mind is going to look something like this. And that's going to give you 65 damage, and Kunimitsu's combo damage isn't very high, so this is a little bit lower than what your maximum damage is, but is close enough that as you're starting out, this is going to service you just fine, and is a combo you can use off of any combo starter practically that you do. And so again, if you have a situation where you're not quite sure what to do because maybe you get a floor break or a balcony break and you're not entirely sure what you should be doing, just remember forward 4, set 1, 2, 1 is your tailspin, and then you have 3+4 after the tailspin to be able to go into another forward 4 and then finish the combo from there. Now, if you want a more advanced combo, what people have found is that there's actually a really interesting thing that you can do with set 3, which is going to increase your damage quite a bit. And what I actually have to just do the full combo to be able to demonstrate this. But if you micro dash into set 3, and you can see there I didn't dash enough, if you have the spacing perfectly correct, then core circle forward 2 is actually guaranteed there and gives you a total of 76 damage. This is about where Kunimitsu's max damage is. Now, this is a little bit tricky to do, but it is consistent to do if it's something you want to learn. The key to being able to understand if this, where this doesn't work, is that you have to be at least +2 to make this combo work. So, if I do this full combo here, and I dash in too far and do set 3, you can see I'm only +1. And from this point, the opponent can actually block the quarter circle forward 2. It's funny how difficult it is to mess up a combo, but you see there, they were able to block it because I was only +1. So understanding the timing and the distance of the micro dash into Cat 3 is really important here so that you don't get that follow-up blocked, and it is -12 in crouch. But if you can figure that out, that's about where max damage is out in the open without any walls. Now, when it comes to wall conversion, let's talk about that a little bit. The main way that a lot of people have been converting to the wall is by using forward 3+4. So you can see from here on the wall, I can use forward 3+4 to get a wall splat from a fair distance away. And if I could actually get the follow-up here. Wow, I messed it up somehow. But you can see that forward 3+4 for a lot of situations is going to kind of be your main way to be able to get to the wall. And so now let's talk about combos at the wall. So the most consistent screw I find at the wall is to be down forward 1-3. It works pretty much all the time in all situations. Almost never, like I never have a problem with it whatsoever. And after you do down forward 1-3, you can do down forward 2 into your ender. And finally, when it comes to the combo theory, a really important thing to remember when you convert to the wall is that what you want to do generally at the wall is you want to do jab, down forward 1, down 2, 1, and then the easiest way to do it, what I do, is just hold the 1 button and then mash 2. Because when you do that, it'll just give you the full thing. So you don't have to remember the exact input. You don't have to time it properly. Just down 2, 1, hold 1, then mash the 2 button. And then that's going to be your wall under. Sometimes when you're actually on the wall and you do jab, down forward 1, down 2, 1, 2, 1+2, it will drop. They'll low slump and it'll drop. So when you hit the wall, when you wall splat, and then you do a combo from a wall splat, I tend to do just down forward 1 into the ender and not the jab. I omit the jab just to make it a little bit more consistent. I'm not sure why it does or doesn't drop. I don't know if it's something I'm doing wrong or what, but that's what I do just to add a little bit to the consistency. And now that we're through the combo section, let's start talking about individual moves with Kunimitsu, and we're going to start with her heat engages and explain her heat engages. We're going to start with forward 1+2. Forward 1+2, 17 frame mid minus 5 or 7 on block. 6. Oh, it wasn't even close. But the important thing is that it tracks to sidestep right. And sidestep right being Kunimitsu's weak side makes this a really important move for you to be able to use to dissuade people from stepping. On Heat Dash, it gives you full combo as well. And one of the important things about Heat Dash as well with Kunimitsu is that the core principle of what we're talking about with the combo doesn't quite apply because you can't do the hop kick. So to make it really simple and easy to remember, forward 3+4 in the set stance, boom, here, here, boom, 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 boom. Just to make it easy to remember. Again, not optimal, but as you're starting out, being able to consistently do this combo is really important, so that's why I'm giving you this combo for this beginner's guide. But yeah, forward 1+2, good range, track sidestep right, only -6 on block, meaning that you still have the ability to move around, maybe even utilize your parry if the opponent is constantly pressing afterwards. It'll lose to jab, but anything else, parry will be able to beat. And overall, it's just a really solid and easy button to be able to use. While Rising 2-1, this is going to be is a Swiss Army knife of a move. We talked about it in the punishment, but it's also important to talk about by itself. This is a while rising mid, first hit -9 on block, second hit -13. But the important part about this is that it is hit confirmable. Now, it's not very easy to hit confirm. I'm just gonna tell you straight up right now. If you set the bot to random block, if I set the bot to random block here and I just go try to hit this, like have so little confidence in this that I'm not even. Could you actually it's on random block? Oh my God. You see, when I'm actually trying to react to that hit, oh man, and I'm trying to confirm it, I don't quite have enough time to be able to hit confirm it just based on if they're randomly blocking or not. I have to look for tells a lot of the time. That's at least the way I do it. Maybe I'm an old man, maybe I'm not with the times anymore, but I imagine if I have trouble with it, a lot of other people are going to have trouble with it as well. And so the way I hit confirm this is I look for something that the opponent does. For example, if my opponent blocks down 1, which is +3, puts me in crouch. If my opponent tries sidestepping, this move will track sidestep. And so if I see them sidestep, that's my cue to hit confirm this. And that makes it a lot easier if that's what you're looking for. Not just if the move hits, but if they're doing something that would allow this move to hit. And that's another important point about this move as well. This move tracks really hard to sidestep. It can be sidestep depending on the character, but it tracks really, really hard. And that means that if you put yourself in a position where you use up forward 2 and you see them step, that's what's going to make this really confirmable. But while rising 2-1, in short, not only is it a heat engager, but it's a really important while rising mid to be able to use because of the hit confirm aspect of it, and because it's a really good move to be able to frame trap with stuff like down 1, for example. On Heat Dash, this only gives you a guaranteed follow-up. Heat Dash follow-ups, you just want to do core circle forward 1+2. That's going to be your best option. From back turn, in back turn, you have back turn 1-4. This move is okay. The main reason why this can be good is that if the opponent power crushes through you in a lot of situations where you go back turn 1 actually beats power crush. That is built into how Kunimitsu works. So if I do, for example, with Kunimitsu, from crouch 1+2, I'm +5 here, and my back turn 1 is 11 frames, which means it beats power crush. So let's do this here, boom, boom, and then I get back turn 1-4, and I get heat engager. Another important point about this as well is just like while rising 2-1 and a lot of other Kunimitsu moves, this is hit confirmable. Now, again, hit confirming this just if it's on random block, now that's a little bit, but if my opponent does power crush, then I can hit confirm it. I do have enough time to be able to visually see that they've pressed the button, they've done power crush, they've done something, and then hit the 4 button. But that's also contingent on the fact that I'm not immediately trying to do something like back turn 1-3, for example, because obviously at that point, I've run out of time. Well, it's not that I've run out of time, it's more so I pressed an off button, so I can't do the back turn 1-4. There is a caveat to this though. If I choose to just do back turn 1 by itself, it's -8 on block, which from back turn actually means that you're punishable. So that's something you have to keep in mind as well. But with the delay on it as well, you can see I can delay it so much that the opponent can power crush through it. So that's something to keep in mind there as well when it comes to back turn 1-4. But, you know, it's a decent move. It's +3 on block as well, but it's a little bit risky because if the opponent ducks, then, well, you get launched because it's high. On heat dash as well, if I could actually do heat dash here, it does only give you a guaranteed follow-up. I missed it because I'm a bit of a dummy. For 40 damage. Now, Cat 1-2, turn this off, is kind of crazy. So Cat 1, -7 on block high at 11 frames. Fastest move that you have out of Cat. Second hit, -9 on block and safe. And importantly as well, you actually can't even power crush through this, and it's a weapon attack. So there's really nothing that the opponent can do to be able to stop this. I would not be surprised if this gets nerfed in the future. But Cat 1-2, natural and normal hit. Second hit is not only delayable, like again, you can see that they can power crush through if I delay it, but also has a cancel on it. And I can cancel this into from crouch at only -14 and try doing a from crouch mix if they're scared of the second hit. This is a very good move out of Catan. It's very good to throw out in neutral as well if you can find an opponent who's being very passive or trying to take their turn a lot. If you have an opponent that's like only playing on their frames, I'm minus, I don't press, I'm plus, I do press. When you are plus, when they are minus, and they're doing that and you know they're not gonna hit you, go in the Catan and do this. It's very difficult for the opponent to be able to deal with, and this second hit will catch out a lot of people. But even besides that, with this delay, you can see just how confirmable this is. If I delay this a lot, this second hit will still hit. You do not lose the ability to hit this second hit because you delay it. It is obscenely strong. Gives a guaranteed follow-up on heat dash. It's a very good move out of Catan. And then lastly, we have set 1+2. This is probably, in my opinion, her best heat engager. This move tracks sidestep when in set. So if the opponent, we set the opponent up to sidestep right after forward 4 gets blocked, you can see that this tracks, it hits mid. It's also safe on block at -5, which means at -5 that if the opponent jabs, you have access to your parries, you can sidestep, you have really all of your options at your disposal for defense besides power crush, reduce the jabs, but regardless of that, set 1+2 here being -5 mid heat engager that tracks the sidestep makes it a very good move. But really importantly as well, it is one of your longest range moves, your longest range mid out of set stance, which means if I'm out at like this range, if I try doing set 2, for example, I guess if I do a deep dash, it works. So let me back up a little bit more. You can see how that whiffs. But if I go back to around range 5 here and I do a deep dash 1+2, see how that second hit still connects, right? So this has a lot of range on it, more range than set 2 does, and that means if you're trying to approach from, say, out here at range 4.75, somewhere around there, where set 2 would whiff, set 1+2 is going to hit as well, which makes it a good approach tool as well. Yeah, there you go. Finally was able to demonstrate it. And on heat dash, this gives you full combo for some reason. It's a very strong move. You probably already know and you should be using it. And if you're not, then it's probably a key piece of the puzzle that you're missing with Kunimitsu. Now, let's talk about Kunimitsu's heat moves themselves a little bit. Let's start with down back 1+2. This is a mid launcher in heat, but it also, keep in mind, takes away all of your heat when you use it. It's also -9 on block, which means if it gets blocked, you lose your turn. I do not find this move to be particularly good or useful, and there are two reasons behind it. The first reason is that it uses all of your heat. The second reason that it's -9 on block. The core issue with this move is that when this hits, you do get full combo off of it. But if I do a full combo with this move, so you can see I'm doing about 71 damage off of that. Say 76 when you get the max damage, which I don't think works on Kunimitsu, but I might be wrong. I might just be doing the combo wrong. So you're getting about 70, 75 damage off of it. Whereas if I do, say, Heat Smash, for example, and Heat Smash connects, then I'm getting 50 damage, right? So I'm losing out on 20 to 25 damage, which is a substantial amount of damage, don't get me wrong. But when we do Heat Smash, we're left plus. And that already is making it a little bit easier to digest than using down back 1+2, because with down back 1+2 being -9, it means since the opponent is able to get their offense going and start their turn, the potential damage that you're taking because you're -9 makes this move really hard to justify in a lot of situations. Whereas when you do Heat Smash, even if it gets blocked, because you're +5, you're still going to be hopefully getting some damage out of that +5 situation, which makes Heat Smash just kind of do more on block. It's a give and take. The launcher gives more damage on hit, but potentially costs you damage on block. Heat Smash, on the other hand, if you're using all of your heat, doesn't do as much damage on hit, but gives you more opportunity to be able to continuously do damage on block, which I think is a lot more important than the combo damage you're getting out of down back 1+2. Mostly my own opinion, but this is just a move I don't really see any Kunimitsu players use simply because it just is -9 on block. And it's really difficult for me to be able to fully demonstrate why the move isn't really good in heat until we look at up 1+2. I'm kind of like tiptoeing, not fully articulating why the move is bad because I'm comparing it to Heat Smash, and there are different use cases for each move, right? But when you put up 1+2 into contention, it's just no contest. Up 1+2 is 38 damage, barely uses any heat. Look at the heat bar right now. It uses about a quarter of the heat bar. And on block, this move not only has great range, but leaves you +5 on block in the back turn. And like what we talked about in the punishment section, this means that back turn 1+2 is just free. The opponent can't do anything to stop it. They can't jab because you're +5 and it's a 14 frame move. If you power crush, then you as the Kunimitsu player can actually block the power crush after the move comes out, and you come net positive in damage. So you get a free mix up with your mid option covering everything the opponent can do, and then not having the ability to be able to properly counter the move, on top of it being -2. And that means that if we have a situation where we do this, sidestep, another up 1+2, another one, that's giving us so much more potential to get that damage in than if we go for one launcher for all of our heat and then our heat's just gone at that point. So down back 1+2 has a use case. It has a use case. And the use case specifically where you want to use it is when you are almost completely out of heat and you need a launcher over a Heat Smash for whatever reason. That's it. This is really the only reason. If you have more than almost 0 heat left, there's no reason to use this move over up 1+2. And when you're getting low on heat, in a lot of situations, the Heat Smash is just going to be bad because even though it doesn't do as much on hit, if the opponent ends up blocking it, then you're able to still continue your offense. And then finally, there's Katon down 1+2. This suffers from a similar issue as the down back 1+2. It does a small amount of damage and costs all of your heat, just like all low heat smashes do. So it's not one of those moves where you really only want to use it when you're about to run out of heat. Or another way that you can use it is if you're close to the wall, because this can, I hope I got the spacing right here, convert to the wall for wall combo if you have the spacing right. Miari has a move that's exactly like this. I don't use it with Miari. I think it's bad, and because of that, I think this isn't very useful in 99% of situations with Kunimitsu as well. So really the only thing that you're looking at in heat in terms of heat moves with Kunimitsu is up 1+2. This is by far her best move in heat. It's a very strong move in heat. It's something you should be utilizing. The other two moves are fairly niche and not moves I think that you really need to worry about. Finally, there's her heat smash. We can just talk about this real quick. We talked about it a little bit before. It leaves you +3 in front turn. It's not the best in terms of frames, but what it means is that you can use some of your core tools to be able to start your small Tekken offense game like 1-1, 2-2, and 4-2. That's really the main thing that we're going to get from Heat Smash, but because you're only left at +3, your options are fairly limited. You can't go for big counter hit moves like back 2 or down 1, for example, because at +3, you're going to very easily be jab checked or down 4-1 checked by your opponent, and if they have like a magic 4 counter hit launcher, then you're putting yourself at really big risk by using these moves. You could use forward 4 as well if you want to, because if the opponent does a down 4-1 after, forward 4 will counter hit, but because you no longer have heat, you're not going to be getting a heat engage off of that counter hit, meaning the reward you get out of that is a lot less than it otherwise would be. Okay, so now let's talk about Kunimitsu's key moves. First thing I want to say before we get into this is that I want to reiterate what I said in the beginning of this. Every move that Kunimitsu has a purpose. Almost every single move that Kunimitsu has, you can find some sort of use case for. Some of them are going to be matchup specific. Like, for example, Katan 1+2 is more effective against tall characters because since it hits in that arc, it comes out faster against a character like Fakaram than Kunimitsu. You can see here that against Kunimitsu, it comes out on frame 32. Against Fakaram, it comes out on frame 24. I'm not going to be talking about the specifics of these moves in this video. At some point in the future, when I have a better understanding of the character, I will be making a video breaking out every single move that she has. But I'm not going to get into the weeds and the specifics of each individual move that Kunimitsu has. I just want you to know that with a couple of exceptions, like up forward 2, for instance, this move, as far as I can tell, is completely useless. Every move that Kunimitsu has a use, has a purpose, and you should learn what the purpose for that move is or why you would want to use it. This video, when talking about key moves, especially for the sake of time, is just going to be going over the ones that I believe are the most important for you to remember when starting out with Kunimitsu. And the first move that we're going to talk about is, in my opinion, probably the most important one, and that's 1-1. The entire 1-1 string, and specifically we're going to be talking about 1-1-2. We don't want to worry about 1-1-1. We don't want to worry about 1-1-4. 1-1-1, by the way, only used in combos. Don't use outside of combos. 1-1-4, it has uses. Don't worry about it. We're just going to be focusing on 1-1 and 1-1-2. Her entire jab string is really, really important for you to know. And this is going to be a very long section of the video because it goes into a lot of the theory when it comes to Kunimitsu. It's really important to understand that this move, this string, is a mix-up. The entire thing, 1-1, 1-1-2, 1-1 Katan, all of this is a mix-up. And it's important to understand when you want to use these moves and why you want to use these moves. So, let's start with the 1-1. 1-1 on block, high mid -5. What makes this really tricky is that because it's high mid, even if the opponent ducks under the high, the mid can still connect. And if the mid connects on counter hit, then the third hit 1-1-2 is guaranteed for 38 damage. One of the things I found that makes it really easy to be able to confirm this is if I see the opponent duck under my jab, I just finish the string. Because most of the time, most opponents are going to, after ducking the jab, try doing a while rising punish. And if they try doing that, second hit will counter hit, and then third hit is going to be guaranteed. Now, the opponent can potentially duck under the high, block the mid, and then sidestep this last hit, because this last hit can be sidestepped to the right. That's a really important thing to keep in mind when you are playing Kunimitsu, is that doing this does inherently carry risk with it against an opponent that is mindful with their defense. So you don't want to just be throwing it out all the time. But the chances of someone doing that, even at the highest level, are so close to 0 that a lot of the time I find success just assuming it will counter hit, because most of the time if they duck my jab, it does. And if it doesn't, most of the time, then I'm the one that's getting punished for it. So that's the first thing to keep in mind, is that the second hit of 1-1, if it's counter hit, the third hit is guaranteed. The other thing though is that this is only, for some reason, -5 on block. And so that means if my opponent here, I set them up to start taking their turn. So let's just have them do something really simple. Let's have them do a 1-2 jab afterwards. If my opponent does a 1-2 jab after I do 1-1, I can parry them. Now, that's not necessarily what I would always advise you to do, but it's just something to give you an idea that the opponent has to be aware of the fact that the parry is still online. And if they're not, that is one of the options you have defensively to be able to get out of your opponent trying to stop their pressure. The other option that you have as well is sidestep. Because at -5, depending on the character, even the jabs will lose to sidestep. And if they do anything slower than a jab, your sidestep is online. So 1-1 into sidestep and then trying to launch, I find to be a very effective strategy with Kunimitsu, and is very good for the small Tekken poking game if that's something that you want to do. But also, besides that, you have the third hit. You have 1-1-2. And if the opponent is attacking into and you have a read that they're going to do that, 1-1-2 gives you core circle forward 2 guaranteed if it's counter hit for an additional 18 damage. This is doing a chunk. This is a total of 46 damage off of that counter hit. It hits hard. And that's the main reason why you want to do 1-1-2, is if you have a read that your opponent is going to press a button afterwards, but you don't know what button. Because you see, one of the problems that you could face is if you just do 1-1 and the opponent does core circle forward 1+2, let's say with Kunimitsu, some sort of homing mid, right? And you commit to the sidestep here, you could get hit out of that. You know, you could get hit out of that. Or Kunimitsu doesn't have this, but let's say they do a plus on block move, or they do a plus on block homing high, or they try doing something like that, or they do a low. A low might be actually a much better example I can actually demonstrate here with Kunimitsu. But let's say they do a low, right? Let's say they do down 1+2. So I try the sidestep here after 1-1, low hits me, right? Oh no, now I have to deal with my opponent playing Tekken 8. That's one of the key pieces of 1-1-2. Because if they try doing that, that's going to hit them out of it. Whether they do a jab, a low, a homing move, a plus on block move, whatever it is, 1-1-2 will beat it. But the inherent risk of that is that they might sidestep to the right. Because again, if they sidestep right here, then I get launched for doing this. But if I do 1-1, they sidestep right, well, now they have used their turn. They have used their action to sidestep this 1-1-2 to the right. And that means even though I'm -5, now I have some agency to be able to continue my offense. I can do 1-1, sidestep, 1-1, sidestep, 1-1, or I could do 1-1, forward 4. But what I also have access to is Catan stance. So if I see my opponent sidestepping me, I can 1-1 Catan, and then Catan 2 can chase their sidestep and leave me +5, which puts me into another mix-up situation. What I can also do, if my opponent's being really patient, 1-1 Catan the back turn, and then I can mix them from back turn. And then you might say, well, but if they sidestep and then they hit you out of back turn, you could get launched for that, Seth. And you're 100% correct. Absolutely, that's the case. And let me demonstrate that for you right now. I'm going to choose to sidestep and then launch. And this is going to demonstrate an opponent who either sidesteps into a button, like preemptively tries punishing 1-1-2, which didn't work here apparently because I don't have it set out correctly. So let me try it again. You see, so this is like an opponent preemptively sidestepping the second hit and trying to launch you. And let's just like assume for the sake of argument they have a safe down 4-2. They're playing like Paul or something, right? So if you have an opponent that's doing that, you see how that's a counter hit launcher. So yeah, if I do this and then go in the back turn, I could eat a launcher for it potentially, especially if my opponent's trying to react to the Catan. But if I'm mindful of that, the options I have in Catan allow me to be able to beat an opponent who's doing that. And of course, I can do this out of neutral as well. So if I do 1-1 and they try doing that, I could use something like forward 1 plus 2. I could use down 1. I have options both in and out of stance depending on my circumstances and what I want to choose, what I feel like doing. So this is the important dynamic behind 1-1. I could make an entire video talking about this. I probably will at some point. But the key to remember is that all of these options that you have, whether you do 1-1 by itself, whether you do 1-1-2, or whether you do 1-1 into cat, all of these options that you have, that was a funny trade, have a purpose behind it. And so it's important for you to pay attention to what your opponent's doing, try to understand what they're doing, and pick an option that suits the situation. So, as an example, if I do 1-1, and my opponent just doesn't sidestep, right? If my opponent just never sidesteps after 1-1 ever, I just 1-1, 1-1, 1-1, whatever, and they never sidestep, it's safe for me to just throw out 1-1-2. Because the only way I lose here is sidestep, right? But if I do see my opponent sidestepping, I have to be a little bit more careful of just throwing out 1-1-2. But I can still just do 1-1, and it's very safe for me to just be able to throw this out because -5 high mid. There's not a lot that the opponent can actually do to be able to stop that. And for the sake of time, I won't go on too much more about it, but that's just generally trying to give you a general idea. Pay attention to what the opponent's doing. Understand the strength and weaknesses of this string and understand where it can be weak, where it can, I guess I just said this, where it can be strong. Yeah, I did just say this, but and recognize what the opponent's doing to respond to it. If the opponent isn't responding to it in a way that makes it weak, then it's strong. If the opponent is responding in a way that makes it weak, then it's weak, but then your other options are strong because your other options will beat whatever beats the thing that they're beating. Does that make sense? Maybe, probably not. I think you get the point though. Let's move on to the next move here. And the next move is going to be 1-2-2 and 1-2-4. So 1-2-4, first off, this is natural on counter hit. This is her G clef. 10 frame counter hit move. Wall splats, of course, on counter hit. Boom, boom, boom. Boom, boom. Boom, boom. Get full combo here, 73 damage. Really nice on that front. But we also have 1-2-2. 10 frame punish. We already talked about this quite a bit. I know that I said you won't have to jump around to be able to get information, but I really don't want to reiterate everything about this because there's enough going on here. It would take up too much time, so please just skip back to the portion of the video where we talk about this and then come back here if you want to know about the situation after 1-2-2 hits. Mainly what we want to focus on though is just 1-2 by itself and 1-2-2. So 1-2-2 is hit confirmable, but it's really, really difficult. It's very frame tight. I'm gonna try to do it. I'm tired and I haven't practiced it, so I'm making up excuses, all right, because I'm not confident in my own ability to be able to do this. So you can see I'm really tired, but you can see from that example that it is hit confirmable, but it's difficult. It's not easy to do. And because of that, you have to be really mindful when throwing out 1-2. Or 1-2-2 in particular, because not only does it end in a high, but it's also -12. So even if they don't duck the high, you still get punished for it. And a lot of the time, what you're going to be doing, if you confirm this, is you're going to be Twitch confirming it, right? It's a 10 frame move, and if you catch an opponent doing something, then you're going to much more easily be able to confirm 1-2-2. But a lot of the time, though, if it's counter hit, then you're going to want to confirm 1-2-4, because that's natural on counter hit and does more damage than than 1-2-2 does, a little bit more because a counter hit situation, 24, so it's doing 10 more damage. The difference is the neutral situation afterwards, of course, but that's something you want to keep in mind with the 1-2 string. It is hit confirmable, it's difficult. You're really looking on that counter hit to do the 1-2-4 to confirm that, and it is confirmable, it's just a little bit tricky. All right, 2-2. So 2-2 is a lot of the same thing as 1-1. In my opinion, 2-2 is a little bit weaker than 1-1 because of the extension being a high and not really doing anything on counter hit. Also, you can't delay this move. And I bring this up because this was the case in Tekken 7 and it's been making me in particular a little bit like confused on how to use this move. This third hit is not delayable. You have no ability to be able to delay this, and that means that the opponent can much more easily duck under this and then punish you for doing it. So the thing with 2-2 is that it's a lot like 1-1, where you can go into Catan, and then if the opponent starts swinging into you or ducking or whatever, then you have Catan 2 to be able to deal with that, right? So let's just say this way, right? If my opponent ducks, and this is an example of a hard duck, so this probably isn't the best example, right? But if I do 2-2 and my opponent ducks under the high, what options do I have to be able to deal with that? Well, my opponent is using their turn to duck under the third hit of 2-2-2. And because of that, that might open me up to being able to use my mids, like forward 4, or down 1, or core circle forward 1+2. That's a forward 1+2, but you know what? That one works too. I'm able to be able to use my mids if my opponent is committing to ducking under the high through their turn. Now, a good player is probably going the fuzzy duck here. So they're not going the hard duck like the CPU is right now. They're probably going the duck and then stand up. Or you might have someone that's preemptively trying the punish. And if you have someone that's preemptively trying the punish at -6 and you throw a button, you might end up getting counter hit even though they're trying to launch the third hit of this string. And so that means that a lot of the time when you do this, you might have to play patiently and wait for the opponent to do something afterwards. But if they're not preemptively trying to punish the high, they're just ducking, or they're just being patient because they don't want to get counter hit by this third hit, you are now going to have access to being able to do, you know, your lows, like down 1+2 or down back 4, or moves like that, because the opponent has spent their turn on ducking the third hit of 2-2-2. Now, there's one more thing to keep in mind here as well. If the opponent does a move that high crushes, depending on the frames of it, of course, that's going to be able to go under the high while simultaneously mixing you up with whatever the high crush is, in this case, a low. Kunimitsu's down 1+2 does not have the high crush frames to be able to beat this, but again, it depends on the move. Down 4, obviously, universally is an option to be able to deal with that. So, if you're playing Kunimitsu, what options do you have to be able to deal with that if an opponent's docking or doing the down 4 or whatever? And that's where cat comes into play, because if you go in the cat, even at -6, that's still going to be anything the opponent does, including jabs. Again, similar dynamic and situation to 1-1, but just worse because the follow-up doesn't really do as much on counter hit as 1-1-2 does, and the counterplay, you're just left with less options to be able to defeat an opponent who's trying to do this. All right, next we got 4-2. This, in my opinion, is better than 2-2. It's Kunimitsu's best 12-frame button, in my opinion. And there are a couple of reasons for that. The first reason is that this leaves you back turn at -3, which means that if the opponent tries doing anything against you except for lows and throws, Power Crush is going to beat it. So even if they jab, Power Crush wins here. And that means that this effectively puts you in a mix-up situation on block. Now, it's not the best mix-up situation, because if they down forward 1-check you, for example, the Power Crush can win here, but it'll beat anything else that you do, of course. Even like the fastest move back turn 1, it'll lose. But if they do a jab, you can duck, you can try power crushing. You have options here on top of, because it's -3, it's just safe, so you can just block it afterwards and you're absolutely fine. But the main reason why this move is so good is because it tracks to Kunimitsu's weak side. I need to set them to 1 block here. It tracks to sidestep right. That makes this move godlike, because this is Kunimitsu's best homing move. It's her best tracking move. You have moves like back 2, for example, which we'll talk about a little bit later, that also track to her weak side. But 4-2, because it's 12 frame high, not only safe on block, but being -3 means if you get a read on what the opponent is doing, you have very real answers to those options. And on top of that, on hit, it being +6, which means you can just do back turn 1/+2 and the opponent really can't do anything to stop it, makes this move really crazy to utilize. I think it's one of her best moves, and I think it's really underrated. I don't see a lot of Kunimitsu players using this move. It's very strong because of its fast startup, its tracking properties, and its frames on both hit and block. It's a move that you should be using with her. One of the disadvantages of the move, though, is its range. You can see that I'm at around range 2.25, and it whiffs. So that's one thing you gotta be really careful of when using this, is that it has about the same range as jab. I think it's a little bit more than jab. It's a little bit more than jab, but it's about the same range as jab. But even with her 2 is quite stubby as well, and 4 will reach here where 2 doesn't. That's another thing that makes this move quite good, is that even though it has shorter range, especially it's deceptively short range, I should say, it's more range than any other move that she has at these frames, including down forward 4. It's her longest reaching 12 frame move. Again, it is a move that you should absolutely be using. It is one of her best. All right, forward 4. So this is the stance mix button. This is the mid counter hit button. This is a 15 frame +3 on block mid into stance. And the most important thing for you to remember about this is if the opponent presses anything besides power crush after forward 4, then set 2 will counter hit launch them. So if I set the opponent up here after forward 4 gets blocked to, let's just say, down jab, right? Simple thing. Down jab is going to do a lot against this stance. Down jab is going to be if I try doing the low. It's going to be if I try doing the high. It's going to beat my... Well, you spoiled it. It's going to beat my 1/2, my heat engager. But if I press 2, it counter hit launches. And this alone makes the risk reward of doing down jab here really skewed in Kunimitsu's favor. But what the opponent can do to be able to avoid this stuff, and something I talked about at the beginning of the video, is that they can sidestep these options to the right. So if I do forward 4 in the 1, sidestep right wins. 2, sidestep right wins. And if I do 1/2, it beats sidestep right, but a well-timed sidestep right block, because these moves are 10 frames and, oh my god, are 10 frames and 12 frames respectively. It is reasonable for you to be able to step block and be able to effectively sidestep those 2 moves while also blocking the 1/2, meaning that Kunimitsu isn't able to beat you that hard for sidestepping to the right. In fact, the only thing that she can do to mix you up that will track sidestep here is 3. 3 will beat sidestep, but because it's 0 on hit, she's not really able to do anything afterwards. So what you want to be doing with Kunimitsu then is you want to be actually canceling set stance if you see someone sidestepping, because like what we've talked about in the other key moves in this video, is if you see the opponent sidestepping here after forward 4, then they are using their turn to do that, right? They are using their turn to sidestep, and because of that, that's going to give you access to a mix-up from crouch. That's where the real strength of this move lies. If you are here and you're trying to force mix-ups all day, again, against an opponent who's not sidestepping, then doing something like forward 4 into 1, forward 4 into 1 delayed 2 works really well. I've been using this against players at GOD 3 and it works phenomenally. But if you have an opponent that is trying to sidestep this, it's really important for you to remember that you can cancel set in the crouch and do a full crouch mix. We'll talk more about set in the stance section of the video, but that's the dynamic of forward 4. Basically, the short of it is that if you do forward 4 on block, then set 2 is going to counter hit launch them if they do anything. You can also, but it's -9 on block, right? So you lose your turn. You can do one instead at -1, and then you have one delay 2 that you can use if you don't want to fully commit to losing your turn if they block it, but you have an inkling that they might press. And then, of course, you have the low to be able to mix them up from the stance there. All right, let's talk about her down forward 1 string now. So down forward 1-2-2 is a all natural on counter hit, 44 damage, mid. Second hit of this is -10, and the third hit of this is -14 on block, forces crouch, which means some characters like Jin and Raven can launch punish this, so you have to be very mindful of that. But with this move, with the down forward 1 string in particular, again, it's all natural on counter hit. It's really important, though, that you make sure that you're counter hit confirming this if you get that counter hit confirmed, and you do it on the first hit. If you're trying the counter hit confirm after the second hit connects, you cannot input the third hit. You have to counter hit confirm it on the first hit being counter hit. That's really important to remember. Another thing about this as well is that you can delay the second hit, you see? You can delay the second hit. Oh my God. But if you delay it too much, then even on counter hit, it's not natural. You can delay a little bit and still have it be natural for you to be able to more easily confirm the counter hit. But if you delay it too much, again, not counter hit confirmable, but it might make it easier to be able to, after the down forward 1, catch someone off guard with that second hit. It is -10 on block, but with it being -10 on block, if the opponent tries punishing it, then they can get hit by the third hit on counter hit. Now, the third hit on counter hit doesn't do anything in particular, but it's still something that they have to be aware of because it's still 24 damage that they could be taking, and it's especially worse at the wall because it wall spots in the full combo. Now, the other move that Kunimitsu has to mix up with this is down forward 1-3. Another move that she can delay, and on counter hit, this is a counter hit launcher, as you can see. So the key here is that because you have the down forward 1-2, if the opponent tries ducking for the down forward 1-3, then the down forward 1-2 is going to connect. And if this connects, the third hit is still guaranteed. It's not, the string isn't guaranteed because the first hit is counter hit. It's guaranteed because the second hit is guaranteed when the first hit counter hits, and if the second hit hits, the third hit is guaranteed. So that's what makes this really tricky to deal with, is if you duck for the down forward 1-3, then this mid will connect, and then the whole thing's guaranteed. And again, this can be especially devastating at the wall, since you get full combo out of here. So while you're playing Kunimitsu, those are things to keep in mind with the down forward 1. And it's especially important to keep in mind with the down forward 1 that if the opponent is constantly attacking into after the down forward 1, that down forward 1-3 is your counter hit launcher. Risky because it's a high, but on block, if they don't duck under it, it's -9, but has so much pushback, it resets neutral. So it's really not that big of a deal if they block it. It's really only if they duck it. But then if they're ducking it, again, you have that down forward 1-2. It's kind of hard to punish because of its recovery. They really have to commit to it. And if they don't, then it effectively becomes a safe mid. And it can be risky for them to do the third hit as well. Or it can be risky for them to attack into you because of the third hit. There's a lot going on with this string. There's a lot to talk about. But the main point is that, you know, down forward 1, -2 on block mid, it makes it quite decent to be able to use, albeit it has terrible range. And if the opponent is attacking into it, then you have that 3 to be able to counter hit launch them and get full combo from there while remaining relatively safe because of the mid. And then the mid string is mainly you want to use it as a counter hit string. This is a non-move that I want to make an entire video talking about. So down 1 is being hailed as the god move, and it kind of is. It's kind of great, but it has drawbacks to it. And I want to talk about those drawbacks first before I talk about the pros of it. The first one is that the range on it is kind of bad. It's deceptively low range, just like a lot of things with Kunimitsu. If you're, its max range is around here, range 2.4. Anything past that, like here, it whiffs. And the important part about this is that if the opponent backdashes out of a lot of situations, this move will just whiff. and that makes you susceptible to getting launched if you're throwing this out willy-nilly. On top of that, it's of course linear, as it should be, but if it gets sidestepped, if you have a step-happy opponent, you will get killed for throwing this out willy-nilly for no reason. So it's really important to keep in mind that this move has some drawbacks, and you can't just use it all the time. Now, a couple of things to keep in mind about this move is that it does realign on a delay. So if you have an opponent that's sidestepping and they're using the turn to sidestep, so say after the 1-1 situation we talked about earlier, if your opponent is sidestepping here, then down 1 can be a good option for catching out their sidestep if you delay it in certain situations. But if you're like out here and trying to approach an opponent, this move isn't going to work. If you dash in and down 1, sure, that could work, maybe, but you're leaving yourself open and susceptible to eating keep out, getting counter hit launched, because you're not only dealing with the startup, but you're also dealing with dashing in. You're better off a lot of the time dashing in and trying to do a 1-1 or a 4-2 or something like that, because of the faster startup on those moves means that it's going to be harder for the opponent to be able to not only use keep out, but also counter hit launch you for doing so. That's not to say you can't use this move for that purpose. It's just that for this move, most of the time, what I recommend is using this move when you're already in their face. Say after 1-1, for example, into Catan 2, and you can see the +5 situation. I have to wait a second. Let me do it again. Do it like this. And then you can see if I delay the down 1, then it can catch there. If I sidestep into it as well, then that's another way I can do it. But the point is that you really want to be using this move only when you're already in your opponent's face. Let's talk about the pros of this move. It's +3 on block, of course. That makes it really strong. That means that you can force a from crouch mix, and that's what a lot of people do. What a lot of people do, down 1, from crouch 1+2, back turn mix, loop the offense, right? That's what a lot of people do. I want to give you a different dynamic of this move. I want to tell you about a different way to use this move that isn't just the bog standard, force crouch mix up. And that is, because it's +3, the opponent has to be wary of attacking into you. If the opponent does, say, a while rising 4, let's set them up to do that. Let's set them up for crouch punishment, and let's set them up to do a while rising 4 after down 1 is blocked. If I do while rising 2-1, not only is that confirmable, it's very easy to confirm on a counter hit because I can see the opponent moving. And if I see the opponent moving, then I'm going to be able to very easily confirm this and get that hit. We talked about this a little bit earlier as well, but different section of the video. If they sidestep as well, I can confirm the while rising 2 because it tracks to sidestep in both directions. But another thing as well, if I set my opponent up to punish here and they do a while rising 4 and I just sidestep, I avoid it, right? I just avoid it entirely. And that means that I can crouch cancel into this move over and over again. And so instead of just trying to do a from crouch mix from here, a bog standard 50-50 crouch mix, I can instead harass my opponent and try to get them to respond. And if they respond wrong, then I can launch them. But if I keep doing this over and over and over again, not only does it make it more ambiguous, if I'm doing down 1, crouch cancel, down 1, crouch cancel, down 1, avoiding my opponent's attack options with launcher while also throwing out the down 1, it's a lot better than doing something like while rising 2 as a mix-up, because even though you're not getting the heat engager, yes, if this gets blocked, you're -9, so you lose your turn. You can argue that you don't because you can delay the second hit, but if you delay the second hit, you're -13. It's very risky to do. But if you just do down 1 into down 1 into down 1, you retain that +3. You're constantly looping this from crouch mix while always threatening the down 1+2 while simultaneously avoiding your opponent's defensive options. And then at that point, if you do go for a while rising 1, if you harass them and force them into a position where they can't just stand block or crouch block because they're constantly having to eat this whether they block it or they don't, then that's going to not only make this easier to confirm, but it's going to allow for you to be able to punish the opponent harder for responding to this. And then on top of that as well, because of this doing 23 damage, if I'm doing down one, down one, down one, you see how fast this damage adds up? So if my opponent is trying to crouch block 1+2, again, sure, I'm not getting the heat engager 34 damage. I'm losing out on 11 damage by doing this, but this is harassing the opponent so hard, it makes it a lot harder to justify just blocking for the from crouch 1+2 while simultaneously being able to continue my offensive pressure even when I do the mid mix up out of the from crouch mix. I hope that explanation made sense. I feel like it was kind of all over the place, but I think you get the idea. Basically, what you want to do with down one, when you do use it, is you don't want to think of it as a binary 50-50 mix. You want to think about the timing. You want to think about how to continue your offense. You don't just want to do down one in the from crouch 1+2 over and over and over again. I see a lot of people doing this, and yes, it's an effective strategy, but you can be getting so much more out of it. And if you telegraph that from crouch mix too much, then the opponent's going to crouch block it. And what do you have to mix up the opponent here? What do you have that's going to dissuade your opponent from being able to, from crouch blocking from crouch 1+2? And for a lot of people, that answer is while rising 2-1. But I see so many people just do this, and then while rising 2-1, it gets blocked as -13, and then they just lose the game. Instead, think about the risk reward. Think about what other moves that you can utilize. Think about how you can beat an opponent who's, say, trying to down jab you. Because here's another thing with down one as well. If my opponent down jabs here after this, even if I do while rising 2 here on trade with a down jab, I don't get anything afterwards. I don't get any guaranteed follow-up. I get nothing. I'm left here at +2. It's nothing. So if I'm just mixing up with this and while rising 2, an opponent that just down jabs me, what do I do? And the answer is, if I sidestep, I get a launcher. If I crouch cancel into a nod down one, that's a punish. And that is going to make down jab worse of an option and make my from crouch mix stronger than if I just go, oh, while rising 2-1. Or if I'm only playing in the frames and I go, oh, while rising 1-1, which is also punishable on block. Anyway, there's a lot to talk about with this move. I need to make an entire video on it because there's much more I could talk about, but I just want to explain this aspect of the move because a lot of people starting out with Kunimitsu, I noticed, go for the binary 50-50 mix. And there are a lot of reasons why you want to go another layer from that, even against an opponent who's just stand blocking or crouch blocking. And that is so far my thoughts and my ideas on how to make that work. And I personally find it very effective. Oh yeah, I also forgot to mention in doing that, this is also a counter hit heat engager. Really, really strong. All right, so down 1+2. Down 1+2 is just one of your go-to lows, right? It is, let me turn off their punishment here. It is -14 on block, but it is 0 on hit. It's one of her longer reaching moves that she has. It's hitting at around range 3, which is unusual for Kunimitsu to have a move like that. And of course, it high crushes. So all of those things combined make this quite a good move. It doesn't really do anything on counter hit, but on normal hit, even though it's 0 on block, puts you in crouch, go for the from crouch mix, or we can start our down one pressure like what we talked about before against an opponent who's not really responding to it or being very defensive after this hits. Down 3+4 is Kunimitsu's power crush. It is a really awkward input because it's on a down input instead of a back input like most power crushes are. It hits 360, it's a mid, it's a power crush, it's the power crush that you use, so use your power crush. It's really all there is to say. There's not much else to talk about this move. Down back 4 is a decent mid for you to throw out. This move is -6 on block, puts you in crouch, and has a very delayable follow-up that's also a mid, safe at -9. You see how much you can delay that? But there are 2 other important aspects of this as well. First, very confirmable mid-mid. For 25 damage. The second, it's giving you extra 15. But this first hit on hit is +7. And that means that after this, with from crouch 1+2 being 18 frames, the only thing that beats this is a down jab when it hits. The only thing that beats this is a down jab. Even if they power crush, because it's a low, it beats power crush. And that means that after this hits, you can start your offensive pressure if you don't want to do the second hit with you're down 1, you can try counter hitting them with while rising 2. You can do your from crouch mix. It's a very good mid, and one that I see being not rated very highly, on top of course, the second hit being confirmable, still leaving you +2, so you have access to something like 4-2 afterwards as well. The third hit of this move, though, don't use it. It can be sidestepped, it can be interrupted, just don't use it. You're really only focusing on down back 2 and down back 2-4. Down back 3, this is one of Kunimitsu's lows, so you go in and want to use it. Down back 3, 15 damage, -8 effectively on block. Between the down back 3 and the while rising 4, it can be interrupted with 13 frames, same as Yoshimitsu. One of the things you can do with this, though, as a mind game, because you have this while rising 4, is that even though this is -7 on hit, you can play the mental game with them having to block the mid to do a from crouch mix, even though you're -7. It's obviously very risky to do, but if it hits, then you can do that. Now, if it blocks, the entire thing jails. So if I have them set to standing block, you can see if I do this entire thing, it jails. So you can't do this on block. You will just get yourself killed if you do that, because you'll get counter hit launched, whatever. But if down back 3-3 by itself hits, that is something that you can attempt to do. Now, the other thing to remember as well is that only the first 2 hits are guaranteed. After that, they can block them. And what I see a lot of people try doing is like down back 3-3-3 and then mix that with down back 3-3-4. This doesn't work against people who can play against the character, well, whether it's Kunimitsu or Yoshimitsu. It's purely a gimmick, and really only works because of how the netcode is in this game. It's not a real mix-up. It's not. The only reason why it hits is because usually a lot of the time it's because online ends up making an opponent's reaction / fuzzy guard to the follow-up not work the way that it should have. And then last low that Kunimitsu has out of standing, down back 4, 17 frames, 0 on hit, -12 on block. It's a really safe low. It's a good low. It's a good move to be able to close out a round as well. It's a good low. You should be using it. Back 2. So back 2 is a mid counter hit launcher that tracks to sidestep. So if my opponent here sidesteps right, you can see tracks to Kunimitsu's weak side and counter hit launcher. So it is a strong move in that regard, but it can be really tough to place. Not only is it 17 frames, its range also isn't very good, like a lot of other Kunimitsu moves, and it's -9 on block, which means if the opponent blocks this, you just straight up lose your turn. It's slower as well than forward 4, and while it is giving you more damage than forward 4 does, and it tracks to Kunimitsu's weak side, this is a very niche move to utilize. It's because that if you do something like forward 4, if the opponent isn't stepping, then on counter hit you get less because you get heat engager, but heat engager can still snowball because you keep your momentum. Counter hit launch is obviously going to be better, but on block, -9 versus +3 into stance, being able to force a mix up from here, and then you see how quickly we get to that combo damage just by doing a couple of mixes from this position, right? I would say where this move really shines is if you have an opponent who's doing sidestep right into an attack or sidestep right duck. Both of those options, back 2 plays really well into. And I think that's the main focus you should be having with this move. Not necessarily the counter hit launch. The counter hit launch is more of an added benefit. But the problem is, again, because it's -9, even though you're not getting punished for it, giving an opponent -9 or +9 in Tekken 8 means that they can start snowballing really hard, and it can cause you to take a lot of damage over time. So think of it as a move more so to beat sidestep right. That is a mid, like a homing mid, if anything. I mean, because that's kind of how this move works in a lot of ways, rather than just using it for a counter hit launcher, because it does have its drawbacks. And then speaking of homing mids, Core Circle 4-2. Kind of the same thing as back 2, but more for long range, right? So if you're like out at this range, the range on this is absurd. I want to say this is her longest range move. This move is crazy. Yeah, it's hitting at more than range 3. I want to say this is her longest range move. It hits up to around range 3.5. It is a homing mid, but it doesn't have that counter hit launch property on it, which is what sets it apart from back 2. Both -9 on block though, so where you're really using this move as opposed to back 2 is that back 2, you're using it more when you're close range because it has the added benefit of being a counter hit launcher, whereas core circle forward 1+2 doesn't have the counter hit launch, but has the added benefit of the range on it. And then while running 2 goes without saying, while running 2 here, +6, 15 frame high. Really important as well to note that if the opponent power crushes after a heat engager here, so let's just do, say, forward 1+2 here. While running 2, they power crush, they are set to down jab. Great. This becomes a high damage option to be able to beat power crush, and I guess I should have said this before, but that's also alongside forward 2 or forward 4, of course, because that also beats power crush and then gives you guaranteed follow-up from there. But yeah, because it's +6 on block, besides the post heat engager situation, which is where I find myself using it a lot, it's +6 on block, which means that even if the opponent power crushes, anything up to frame 13 is going to be power crush. So if I do forward 2, for example, which again tracks to Kunimitsu's weak side, sidestep right afterwards, the opponent can't really do anything about this, including sidestep, right? If I choose to jab, I'm so plus that that's also going to beat sidestep. So my opponent just doesn't have a lot of options. They can sidestep the 2-2, funny enough. But my opponent doesn't have a lot of options to be able to beat this offense situation. Afterwards, if I choose to do a low, like down 1+2, that'll also track. Down back 4 will also track. So after this move gets blocked, just the world is my oyster at this point. I can do pretty much whatever I want, with some exceptions, of course, like down 1 can get sidestepped, but just keep in mind what your options are to being able to beat whatever the opponent is trying to do afterwards. And this move is really, really strong, especially for approach, because Kunimitsu, as we know, doesn't have a lot of approach tools. And that's also true with while running 3 as well. It's less plus at +3, but it also means that for 2 you can do afterwards, which is a nice frame trap. It beats the opponent's sidestep, and it's a mid that you can use instead of while running 2, which is a high. And that's going to be pretty much everything, except for the elephant in the room. From crouch 1+2. I don't think everyone knows about this move. I don't think that we need to talk about it. I think even if you haven't played Kunimitsu, even if you haven't played this game, you know about from crouch 1+2. I'll talk about it very briefly here. It is +5 on hit, -12 on block, from crouch low at 18 frames. There are a lot of ways to be able to set this up. There are a lot of ways to be able to use this. It also has good range as well, which is not usual for Kunimitsu. Like it's hitting just outside of the range of a lot of her other moves will. Like that's hitting at range 2.4, and like a lot of moves that are at this range, like if I'm trying to set it up perfectly, like down 1, for example, just whiff, you know? So it has a little bit more range than average for Kunimitsu. It's fairly easy to stop, and that puts you at back turn +5. And what's important about back turn +5 is it's the same thing as a lot of the odd things that leave her +5 in back turn, like 1-2-2, for example, which we talked about before. If you do back turn 1+2, again, they can't power crush through it. If they power crush, then you can block the power crush afterwards. If you do back turn 1, this beats power crush at those frames. You obviously have the low mix up as well, but in particular with from crouch 1+2, if I do the low mix up, then I get my from crouch low afterwards, and you can see that they can sidestep this here. I do this, and then this, you can see how they can sidestep. So that's the weakness of the move, I say in quotes. But if they don't sidestep afterwards, then I can do this into, oh god, I can do this into it again. Or if they try sidestepping, then we can take what we learned from before, where I can do this into this to catch the sidestep and then get heat engager if I want to. So there's just like, it's just ridiculous the amount of things that you can do with this move. It's so stupid, and it's almost certainly going to get nerfed in the future. And that's it for key moves outside of stance. Now, obviously, there are some things that I didn't touch on that are good, like sidestep 2, you see a lot. Down forward 3+4, you see a lot. But those are just, I think, the most important moves that Kunimitsu has that you should be focusing on first. Again, there are a lot of other things that you can do with her. There are a lot of other tools and situations, but because this is a beginner's video, and because you're starting out with Kunimitsu, those are the most important moves that I think are important for you to focus on. Okay, so I'm re-recording this section of the video because I'm realizing that with how many stances Kunimitsu has, and the scope of this video, talking about everything in stance is just so outside of the scope that I think it's going to just take too much time. And 2, I don't think it's going to be really important information to those of you that are watching. So instead, what I'm going to do when it comes to the stances is I'm going to summarize what you want to be looking for move-wise with the stances. I will get this menu out of here, and what you want to be thinking of with the stances. So when it comes to starting out with back turn, the main mid option you want to do out of back turn is back turn 1+2. She also has a mid launcher back turn 4 1+2, which is -13. Back turn 1+2 just does everything that you want. It's -2, fast stop at 14 frames, beats almost anything the opponent can do. It frame traps out pretty much anything that goes in the back turn, because most things that go in the back turn are +5, so it beats jabs, down jabs. If the opponent power crushes, you can block the power crush after. It just does everything that you could possibly want to. It is your go-to move in back turn. The other moves that you have as well are going to mainly be the lows. So you have down 2 and you have down 4. Both of these moves serve slightly different purposes. So down 2 and down 4 both can go into crouch. With down 2, it naturally recovers standing, but if you hold down afterwards, you recover crouching. Down 4 always recovers in crouching, both leaving you at 2 different forms of frame advantage, but still enough frame advantage that you can frame trap if you go in the crouch afterwards with while rising 2, no matter what the opponent does. The difference between the two moves is that down 4 high crushes slightly faster than down 2 does. And so where this comes into play and where it's important is if you do a move that's really minus into back turn, so let's say back 4, for example, and the opponent chooses to try jabbing you out of it at -8, and normally that would be a punish, actually. At -8, you actually can get punished by a 10 frame move if you don't duck. But if you do down 4, I'm thinking of a different move. So it's particularly out of set 1-2 here. If I'm -6 and I try doing down 2, you see how it doesn't high crush, right? If I do 4-2 and then down 2, it does. But if I do set 1-2, it doesn't. But if I do down 4, it does high crush. So that's one of the main points of this. There are 2 main points. One, the range, right? So if I down 2 from here, it's gonna whiff. If I down 4, it's going to hit. So that's one thing. The other thing is the damage, 20 versus 28. The third thing is the frame advantage, and the fourth thing is the high crushing frames. Now, the difference with these on block, though, is that down 2 here is -13 on block, whereas down 4 is -14. So you have to also pay attention to what character your opponent's playing, if they can launch you for throwing this out or not, because obviously down 4 is going to be a little bit less advantageous than down 2, depending on the character that you're playing against. But those are the main decision-making parts of using those 2 moves. Generally speaking, I just say use down 2. Down 4, it's a little bit more complicated and in-depth into the specific use cases for it with the high crushing and the matchup and stuff like that. If you want to go to set of mix-ups to do from back turn, you're choosing between back turn 1+2 and back turn down 2. Anything else past that, the down 4 has more use cases, and you definitely want to think about, which is why I'm bringing it up. But besides that, don't worry about it. When it comes to the other moves that Kunimitsu has in back turn as well, she has moves like 1-2 and 1-3 into stance, but these are just worse versions of forward 4 in the stance and 1-1 in the stance, serving the same dynamic. And when you start understanding how forward 4 and 1-1 and that dynamic works, it's going to make it a lot easier for you to be able to understand how those moves work. Back turn 4 as well is great for being able to catch sidestep, but it's susceptible because if they down jab and this whiffs, then you can get punished very hard for it, and it puts you in a +6 situation into set stance, but it's a high, and that's kind of the same situation you get off of doing the low down 2, but you're not at risk of getting launched for it. So really its only purpose is for homing, but then you have 1+2 for that. So again, it does serve a purpose and it looks really strong, and it is strong, but it's a lot more niche than it is on the surface, so I really wouldn't worry about it. When you go in the back turn, the main thing to think about when starting out is just back turn 1+2 and back turn down 2 and build off of that from there. Next, let's talk about cat stance. So cat stance is a little bit more involved than back turn is. So cat stance, you have a few, like every option that you have out of here is important to think about. The main thing is that if you do something like, my bad, 2-2 on block. If the opponent tries jabbing here, you can see that something like 3-2, you can beat them out of the jab and then launch them. Or if you do 2, also same thing, you can beat them out of the jab and then hit them out of that guaranteed follow-up course circle forward 2. Those are the purposes of 3-2 and 2. The difference between the two moves, in a similar vein as back turn down 2 and back turn down 4, is the frames and the advantage you get with them on hit. When it comes to 3-2, this move is launch punishable on block on the second hit, but gives you a launcher. And the important thing to note here as well is that, and I have to actually change them here because they will go under me if I keep saying them to just do a jab sequence, but I want you to look at my inputs here. If I do 2-2 and then I do 3-2, you see how late I hit 3-2? This means that if the opponent whiffs, I can confirm the whiff and then hit the 2 button and fully launch them. You see how late I can press that? I can't hit confirm it. If they just crouch here and cat stance and I hit 3, I can't really hit confirm it. But I can whiff confirm into a full launcher. Whereas when it comes to the 2, I don't get as much reward. I get 40 damage, but the difference is that this is +5 on block, right? This is +5 on block versus the 3, which is -12, and has an interrupt window for the second hit, so it's a true -12 situation. You are truly punishable for using this move. Whereas, even though you get less reward out of it, this is a counter hit launcher. It leaves you +5, which means it frame traps into forward 4, another 2-2, 4-2, all of these are moves. On top of that, you can also try using your lows. You can try setting up pressure from here. It's a really good move, and you can use it just in neutral as well against the defensive opponent or for Oki because it leaves you at that +5 frame advantage. The other moves that she has in Cat as well, that's really the main focus of Cat. Otherwise, with Cat, you're going to be canceling in the back turn against an opponent that's really defensive and trying to mix them up with your back turn options. Maybe it would be a situation where you could think about using the Power Crush, but if you think about using the Power Crush, you're probably better off just using Cat 2 or Cat 3-2 anyway. The other options you have in Cat, 1-2, it's a really good button. It's high mid, -9 heat engager, natural and normal hit, delayable. It's really strong. You also have the 4 as well, which you can use for a low for 16 damage and has a little bit of backsway, so it will avoid stuff. I wouldn't worry about these things too much. Again, it's a little bit more in depth, and for a lot of people it's a completely new layer that's just going to be add to confusion on how to start out with the character, and I really wouldn't recommend worrying about the other stuff in Cat. The main thing that you want to use in Cat is Cat 2. If you think that if you have a read that the opponent is going to hit a button, then 3-2 is a great option to be able to use as well because of the hit confirm. And then if you have an opponent who you just want to like hit with the heat engager, if you really know what you're doing, then yeah, I mean 1-2, natural, high, mid, safe, -9 delayable, heat engager, really strong stuff. But again, that's a more advanced thing. I wouldn't really worry and focus on that too much. And in fact, I'm not, even though it's strong, because moves like Cat 2 are very strong in their own right. And then the last stance to talk about is set stance. And set stance is, we're saving for last because there's a lot more to talk about with the stance. We've talked about throughout the video about the linearity of set stance. So if I do forward 4, then I do set 1, set 2. Both of these can be sidestep to the right. I do set 1 + 2. It does track sidestep right, but if my opponent step blocks, then they can avoid all of the options simultaneously. The main thing that you're doing out of here then is set 3 to be able to catch an opponent that's sidestepping. But there are different reasons for you to use the different moves that are in set stance. So when we talk about the mids, for example, set 2, you're using for counter hit. So and this is really only used when you do specifically forward 4 in the stance. A lot of people will try jabbing, down 4-1-ing, whatever, you in set stance. And because of that, that's where set 2 comes in. That's the only purpose for this move. It is just a counter hit launcher. You don't use it for a mid mix-up. You don't use it for anything. It's just a counter hit launcher. If you do it trying to find the mid for anything other than a counter hit launcher, you use 1 + 2. Because it's -5 on block, which means you have access to parry, sidestep, pretty much the same situation as after blocking 1-1, but with it being a heat engager as well, it's giving you more reward on normal hit than set 2. That's why it's just the better mid to choose, because outside of counter hit, it's just better in every single way. Range, frames, post hit situation. The only thing it's worse on is the counter hit situation. As for set 3, it's 0 on hit, so it's the same situation as down 1+2. You go in the full crouch, you can try doing a full crouch mix, but because you're 0, that'll get interrupted by an opponent who does like wall rising 4, or maybe even like a wall rising counter hit move like Brian's wall rising 3. So that's something you have to be aware of and you have to think about after throwing this out. You don't always want to be forcing a mix out here because it is neutral on hit. And then we can talk about set 1, because set 1 is where it becomes a lot more involved, because set 1-2 is a jailing string on block. It's high is jailing, but you can delay the second hit to Kingdom Come. And if this second hit counter hits, and I don't know how I'm going to be able to set this up if I can find the right range, the third hit here is guaranteed. But on top of that as well, if you do forward 4 into set stance, let's just go in the set here. You see how much I delay this, and that's still natural, right? So I delay this a lot. It's still natural. It leaves me +8, which gives me access to a lot of frame trap tools with Kunimitsu, like down 1, forward 2. I could even go for my lows if I want. Down back 4 can't be beaten even with jab. But what I can also do out of this is go in the back turn at +8 and then force a back turn mix from here. On top of also having the same dynamic where if they attack into me, then the 2 will connect here. And when this connects, I can't even do it when it whiffs. But just like with 1-1-2, if the third hit counter hits, then I get a guaranteed core circle forward. One follow-up is doing like 46 damage. It's really nice. And then there's one last thing about set as well. I could keep going on and on again for the sake of time and the scope of the video. I'm not gonna ramble too much about this. But then the last thing to talk about here is forward 4, and then you can cancel in the crouch. So if you do forward 4 and the opponent doesn't want to get counter hit launched by set 2, which is understandable, then you can cancel this in the crouch and do a front crouch mix from here. And this is a good way to also be an opponent who's sidestepping, because again, if they sidestep to the right after this, I do set 2, it whiffs. If I do set 1, it whiffs. But if I cancel in the crouch, boom, I get from crouch mix from here. And that's tricky for the opponent to deal with as well, because if they sidestep right duck, then 1+2 will hit them. So they can't necessarily sidestep right duck, and that's what puts them in a mix-up situation that is genuinely something they have to deal with. And then if you start doing that, that's gonna open up, wow, your set 1+2 to actually like hit the opponent and give you that heat engager. And that's everything for set stance, and I think that's everything there is to talk about with Kunimitsu. Oh my god, this was a 3-hour recording. Oh, I don't know how I'm getting this out tonight. It is midnight. Oh my god. I hope this gave you all the information that you need on Kunimitsu. This was a lot to go over. Kunimitsu is a very complicated character. There's a lot going on with her, and I didn't even talk about everything that I could talk about Kunimitsu. I tried to keep it just to the bare bones, basic, essential things that I think are important to talk about with Kunimitsu to answer pretty much any question that a beginner might have. This video isn't necessarily has the aim of trying to answer questions that every new player is going to have, but rather answer every question that a bunch of new players might have, if that makes sense. And I hope that I was able to accomplish that in this video. I am completely wiped out. I am tired as hell. But if you want to see Kunimitsu gameplay, please stop by my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Sesujin. I've been obviously loving this character. I wouldn't be spending this much time on a video if I wasn't invested in this character. And also, besides that, if you found this video helpful, and I hope that you did find it helpful, I would really appreciate you leaving a like on the video. I spent a lot of time and effort compiling this together, and if you found any of it useful, I would really appreciate it. It helps me out a lot. And if you want to see more Kunimitsu videos in the future, please consider subscribing down below. Also, a big shout out to Minty Rosa. They put together a Google Doc on Kunimitsu that is a great resource to be able to look at if you need Kunimitsu info in the moment. I will have that linked down below. It is a fantastic resource, and I cross-referenced a lot of what I was saying with that document to ensure that I'm not talking out of my ass. But anyway, I'm gonna go and I'm going to edit this video now. Help me, I'm gonna be stuck here for another 2 hours without food. Thank you all very much for watching. Again, I hope that you found this video and this resource helpful to learning Kunimitsu. I hope that this video is able to help you out in some way. I appreciate each and every one of you, and I need to give a big thank you to all of the channel members here over on YouTube. All of them help make this possible. So big thank you to Lisetto, Tabs Raksta, Pre, Midnight Ryuga, RxDDXR, Random Korean, and Viko Uzumaki. Thank you all so much for being channel members. Appreciate you all a ton. Thank you all very much for watching at the end. And I'll see you in the next Kunimitsu video. No, the next video is actually probably you gonna be on Lydia or the last patch. Anyway, take care. Bye-bye.